Awesome. So, a bit of a topic shift. As you are executive director of the Mack Institute, I know you advise firms on corporate growth strategies. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to do a bit of a hypothetical thought experiment where, I list a few industries and companies that are undergoing disruptions, and then you tell me how you might advise them.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, so let's start off with airlines. How can airlines manage the turbulence caused by COVID-19?
I think airlines are one of those industries that are so dependent upon physical travel that's going to be probably the hardest of all to get them back on track. So you've picked a very, very challenging industry, but let me look at what they can do, right? I mean, there's no doubt that they need to reduce their costs, right? And sadly speaking, demand is going to be a little bit lower. And what they're going to have to do is deal with that. So some unpleasant things like laying off employees might be part of the mix. But let's get a bit more creative. I think if we take a look at what's happening in the industry, there are various different pieces. One thing is on the cost side, they haven't digitized enough. And why do I say that? Because it'll be even more important, not just to lower costs, but also to keep customers and get them to come to them. If you think about it, they've done superficial things like streaming on the plane and so forth. But if you really think about it, when you go to the check-in counter, if you have a bad experience, let's say someone's taken your seat, they accidentally gave it away and you're a bit grumpy. Someone on the aircraft, when they greet you, a flight attendant, should know that and should immediately address you and give you, I don't know, a glass of maybe champagne or something else just as you walk in. All the data's there, all the information's there, yet they don't do any of that, right? This is a great time to make those investments simultaneously. Why? Because you can automate some of the processes that otherwise have to be done manually, right? Look, what you can do is you can get information, you can lower your costs by having more kiosks. You can use the excuse that we want touchless experiences, further reduce your frontline staff, have you do something on the kiosk. With the kiosk, you don't have to make it a dumb terminal. You can actually capture the person's, I'm thinking with you creatively, right? What you can do is you can look at the person's expressions, use AI to analyze the expression. Is the person happy or are they grumpy when they're looking at what seats they're selecting? That information can automatically be relayed to those iPads that the flight attendants have, and they can actually deal with that. So I'm just an idea. As you're making the transformation, why do that in a slow way? Another thing that can be done very easily, why bother investing a lot of money in cleaning protocols? Of course, we have to do that. Why not invest in seats with new materials that automatically kill any kinds of viruses or bacteria? Because in a world that travels a lot, we will have more of these kinds of issues that come up in the future. Make those kinds of investments. I understand that's a little bit future oriented, but if you think about it, that'll actually lower your cost ultimately than having to keep a plane on the ground for an extra half hour and having more cleaning protocols. That's dramatic. The cleaning end is one problem in terms of cost, but keeping the plane on the ground for longer to disinfect it after every flight, that is what kills it. Utilization of those very expensive assets is really important in the industry, so you can tackle that. More short term, what can they do? Something is going to change, which is that business travel is going to go down. Business travel will go down because A, companies are a little bit more conservative, but B, we've realized, like our previous discussion, so there is a link, we actually will do a little bit of less traveling. So even if a consulting firm starts to travel, let's say every other week instead of every week, you can imagine some of the premium customers on your aircraft are now no longer going to be traveling as frequently. That's a problem for you. So what do you have to do? You have to now think about, how do I compensate some of that? Maybe leisure travel is going to pick up, and you can, in the short term, certainly, because people don't want to be homebound all the time. If they're working in the office, quote unquote, less, and they're working in the home office, perhaps they like a little bit more personal travel. How can you make it safe? How can you make them enjoy it more? These are some of the things you can do. And then finally, if I were an airline, I would diversify a little bit into these VR, AR companies. Why not become an entertainment company? Travel and entertainment, then just travel. Why narrowly define it? If you think about it, I was giving this idea to a well-known car company too. In a world where people are doing more ride sharing and autonomous, let's say people buy fewer cars, you could have a golden opportunity of moving from making money on cars or selling cars to actually making money on, you're now the mobile office where teleconferencing and video conferencing is done. You are now the place where people do retail and banking and everything else. And those are the kinds of things where you make money on, and on the data that people are doing it. So yeah, you could be a car company, but why not think about it as all the services you can provide in mobility and make a business model shift? I think airlines can consider the same, besides digitizing and automating more of their processes, and not just boring things like laying off staff and then bringing them back. I think we can be a bit more creative than that.